Hey friends, I'm Daniel Claremont. I'm the Acadian therapist. Welcome back to this episode. This is going to be the last major episode in the productivity series. This week we're going to be talking about the tiny habits model. I want to be really clear that this is not my model. This is the work of Dr. B.J. Fogg. He's been at it for a very long time. I do highly recommend his book, but if you want a tiny first step, a good place to start would be to actually look at his TED Talks, which I will link to in the show notes below. Now, some of the material I'm going to be talking about is going to be similar to what he talks about there. I'm going to be adding some elements as well. And there's some real mental benefits when you get similar information from multiple different sources that helps enrich and deepen that learning, those concepts in your mind that I talked about in one of my earlier episodes as well. So to get started, I'm going to show you a bit of an equation. Now, this comes from Dr. Fogg's work, and he has mapped out behavior to this basic principle, which is B equals MAP. Now, breaking that down, B stands for behavior. So this stands for whatever behavior, new thing you want to do, whether that is a habit, whether that is a big project, whether that's a small project. I also want to point out that thoughts could be described as behaviors as well. So you could actually develop systems using this model to change your thoughts into healthier ways of thinking, or at least introduce more good thoughts and help reduce some of the unwanted thoughts. So let's start with M. M stands for motivation. Now, Dr. Fogg doesn't talk too much about the motivation piece. Essentially, motivation cannot be predicted. Now, there are some factors that do improve your motivation to make a change. So sometimes a health diagnosis, sometimes social pressures, sometimes New Year's resolutions, right? January the 1st. But often a problem with maintaining that motivation, well, it tends to come in a wave. So we started off motivated, something sparks us to do it, but it's harder to keep it going. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. I'm going to unpack that in a future video because I'm collecting my thoughts on that one still. But M is the first part in this equation. We next move on to A. So this is the ability. Can you do the behavior? So this is a very good question. Our minds and our emotions often tell us, I can't do that thing. Sometimes people around us tell us we cannot do that thing. Sometimes we were raised believing that something was not possible. So, not to sound overly self-promotional, but a therapist really is a good person to bounce that thing off of. But it doesn't have to be a therapist. Even just bouncing it off of somebody else to get a different set of ideas, a new set of eyes on the situation, as well as doing some research. So just whatever the ambition is. So let's say it's a very ambitious goal. Let's say you wanted to become an opera singer, or you wanted to become a doctor. Well, okay, look up role models. The people that that have actually done it, and what do they have that you don't have? So these would be good questions. But ability is an important thing to look at, and sometimes that can be heartbreaking. So there's a little part of me that would like to explore going to medical school. Yet, at my age, it's not likely that I'm going to do that. So there might be a hard acceptance piece in there to say, or well, I could probably devote the years to it, but is there something else that I'd rather do? So the ability question, can you actually do the behavior, is an important factor. The last factor is P. P stands for prompt. Now, you're probably watching this on a smartphone, but if you're not, you probably have one. You understand notifications that will come up. These are prompts. This is very smart on the part of these developers of these apps. They give you these prompts that say, somebody commented on your video, somebody liked your post on Facebook, whatever it is. These prompts gets you to open the app. So actually finding prompts to remind you to do the thing you want to do, if that's taking your medication or doing the dishes or what have you. So prompts is the other part that's going to be helping you make this new behavior. So those are the basics of what leads to a behavior. Now, tying that together into making a change. So take something that you want to do, break it down into small, easy to do pieces, almost ridiculously easy. So break it down really tiny, come up with a prompt to remind you to do it, and try to do it every day. And then over time, you develop the habit of wanting to do that behavior, or make it easier to do that behavior. Okay, so now that we've gotten this theory stuff out of the way, let's talk about a practical example. Because it's me, I'm going to be using a geeky example. So, specifically, a Star Trek model that I wanted to build is about this big, the USS Odyssey. The amount of detail on this thing is overwhelmingly awesome, and I was always putting it off. And so my motivation to do it was fairly high. I thought it'd be really cool, it'd be exciting to sort of see it. That's the M. Ability, that was a bit of a trick. So when I would look at this overwhelming detail, I think, well, I can't do that. Who has the time? It's too much for me. So I broke it down into smaller tasks. So at first I thought, maybe if I just paint for 5 minutes on it, or just pick one piece, take it out of the box, put the other pieces away, focus on this one piece, and just work for 5 minutes at a time. 5 minutes, very doable. So the ability was there. And next was the prompt. So at first this was tricky. I would just sort of squeeze it into my day wherever I could find it. I incorporated it into my own Kanban board. So obviously this Tiny Habits thing works very well with the Kanban system we've already talked about. However, that was also a challenge. So what I started doing was, well, I found my mornings were my best time for being productive. So I would ask myself, can I paint for 5 minutes while I have my morning coffee? Yes, absolutely, that was doable. So this became the plan. So I would paint my model for 5 minutes every morning with my coffee, and then I would pat myself on the back for it. Now that is another factor from this book. You have to give yourself praise. You have to give yourself a reward. Same idea when if you're training a dog, you give them a treat for accomplishing things. We kind of work the same way. So patting yourself on the back, saying, I'm awesome, doing a little dance, or even popping a piece of dark chocolate or something for my coffee. I really like my coffee, so that was my reward while I was drinking my coffee and painting this model, even when I would get frustrated. Now, of course, I would get frustrated. I talked about this in an earlier video about the learning curve. So learning is, frustration is part of learning. And so breathing, grounding myself when I'm getting out of my window of tolerance with that frustration with the new learning, and then keep at it. 5 minutes. Eventually, that Tiny Habits goal changed to like paint 10 windows because there were over 1,000 windows on this thing. And so I would just paint 10 windows every day, pat myself on the back, good job. Now I'm saying 10 every day, or I'm saying 5 minutes. Sometimes I would have more motivation. So when I would actually get in the zone, sometimes I'd paint 20 windows, 30 windows, or I'd paint for like 20 minutes because I'd really get in the zone. If that happens to you, that's good. This is actually part of developing a habit. But what Dr. Fogg would say is treat that as bonus. So say that's bonus credit. Don't raise the bar on yourself. This is a common false assumption. So slow, steady, consistent matters a heck of a lot more than just pushing yourself hard and accomplishing more. That being said, if you enjoy that, go ahead and celebrate it. So it's like, I'm in the zone, I can really power through. That's great. Pat yourself on the back. But the next day, go back to your small goal and at least do that every day. And cumulatively, you end up accomplishing kind of extraordinary things, kind of like I feel like I did with my model of the Odyssey, if you'll excuse just a little bit of cinematography so I could show it off. So that's Tiny Habits in a nutshell. I hope that you found this content interesting. If you find it valuable, please consider subscribing and liking, sharing the video. All that stuff really helps support my work here. I actually really want to thank folks. We just passed a milestone. We're up to over 200 subscribers, which is really exciting. I am so grateful, and I'm going to do my best to keep going. So you take care, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.